like when Tamar was raped, what did David do?
Nothing.
He tried to just be quiet and let it go away, you know. And then years later, Absalom, what does he do? He kills him. I forget his brother's name, but he kills him. We don't know if it's really so he would be in line for the king, you know, or was it revenge for the rape? I don't know, but he put himself in line to be the king, and then what does he do? He kind of creates a rebellion, and he wants to put King David down, you know. What does David do? Runs. You know, he goes to another place. Figure to take care of himself. Then his servants and his army, the people that's with him, fight for him and win. David is more concerned because Absalom's gotten killed than he is for them people that fought for him, you know. And so in our lesson, Joab goes to him and says, look here, if you don't go out there and talk to them people and thank them for what they did for you, you're gonna lose it. You're gonna lose it all. And so it takes somebody to help you every now and then to kind of show you and say, look here, John, you're fishing in the wrong fishing hole. You think you ain't gonna catch nothing there. Move on down that river. Take somebody to talk to you every now and then to help you. Thank the Lord for people who we've gotten where we don't even hardly communicate. We don't communicate. Young people don't communicate. Don't get outside. They're always on their phones and computers and mess. We just need to talk every now and then to each other. David's kingdom restored. Key verse says, and he bowed the heart of all men of Judah, even as the heart of one man, so that they sent this word to the king, return thou and all thy servants. So the king returned and came to Jordan. He's returning back to Israel now. And Judah came to Gilgal to meet the king, to conduct the king over Jordan. The student will determine that God's plans for him are always best as he trusts God by faith in spite of failures. We're going to still have failures, but we still need to trust God. Everybody, it rains on the just and unjust. We are often quick to criticize our national leaders when the Bible instructs us to pray for them. I pray that they get saved. I had a fellow tell me that, and I believe it with my heart. This could also be said of our school leaders, business leaders, and church leaders, and any boss man. Trying to lead a group of people is likely the hardest thing we will ever try to do. And if anybody's tried to do that, it's pretty tough. There are always hard decisions to be made, and leaders need God's guidance in making these decisions. Let us pray for our leaders. Leading a nation is hard enough, but David had made it doubly difficult by sinning against the Lord. The Lord brought trouble on David and his house as judgment against his sin with Bathsheba and the murder of Uriah. Many of David's troubles were self-inflicted, and ours, but Israel had a reputation of being a stiff-necked and disobedient people, just as Moses. David is well known for writing many complaint songs. I poured out my complaint before him. I showed before him my trouble. And I wonder if many of his complaints were linked to his efforts to lead the nation of Israel. In today's lesson, we will observe David's emotional turmoil over the death of his son and struggle to know what to do in difficult circumstances. Israel was still torn apart because of Absalom's rebellion. And before we end, we will see another uprising against David. Oh, the trouble King David faced. 2 Samuel chapter 19 verses 1 through 7. And it was told Joab, Behold, the king weepeth and mourneth for Absalom. And the victory that day was turned into mourning unto all the people. For the people heard say that day how the king was grieved for his son. And the people gat them by stealth that day into the city, as people being ashamed steal away when they flee in battle. They'd come back and won the battle for David, but they had to sneak back in, is how they all felt, you know. But the king covered his face, and the king cried with a loud voice, O my son Absalom, O Absalom, my son, my son. These wonders led to cotton picking rebellion against him. But it's hard for a father not to love his son, and vice versa. And Joab came into the house to the king and said, Thou hast shamed this day the faces of all thy servants, which this day have saved thy life, and the lives of thy sons and of thy daughters, and the lives of thy wives, and the lives of thy concubines. In that thou lovest thine enemies and hatest thy friends. For thou hast declared this day that thou regardest neither princes nor servants. For this day I perceive that if Absalom had lived and all we had died this day, then it had pleased thee well. Now therefore arise, go forth, and speak comfortably unto thy servants. For I swear by the Lord, if thou go not forth, there will not tarry one with thee this night. And that will be worse unto thee than all the evil that befell thee from thy youth until now. Go talk to them. The people of Israel felt David's sorrow over Absalom's death and did not know how to act. A lot of times we don't. Should they celebrate the victory when the king was mourning? Would the king retaliate against them because they had killed his son? So they crept into town and went quietly to their tents. David's soldiers felt unappreciated, thinking that David showed more concern for the enemy, Absalom, and his bunch, than for them who had risked their lives to save him and his family. Their thoughts were that David would have been pleased if they had died instead of Absalom. Were they right? Commander Joab confronted King David with resolve and boldness. He spoke to David as one under his command and insisted that he get up and congratulate the people on the victory. He also warned that if David did not, he would lose every loyal Israelite in a single night, making his situation worse than ever before. If Joab's assessment was correct, it showed just how fragile David's kingship had become. What should David do? In one sense, he had lost a son, and mourning for his son was understandable, especially when one considers David's guilt over his son's death. One cannot understand how hard it must have been for David to find joy in winning a civil war in Israel when brothers were killing brothers, much like our civil war. I think it was the most death people died in that war than any other war we fought. Brothers against brothers. Even in sorrow, he must fulfill his responsibilities to his people and to the Lord. Here we see the powerful influence leaders have. People look to leaders to know what to think, how to feel, and what to do. Leaders set the mood of the people they lead. And David's sorrow cast a dark shadow over the people and confused them. This tells us that godly leadership is a must. We need leaders who will seek God and lead people in the way of his righteousness. Pray that God would send us such leaders. We also see the crippling effects of sorrow. It is not wrong to sorrow, especially when we lose someone in death. Yet we cannot allow the sorrow to overwhelm and paralyze us. We should not sorrow as those without hope. Life goes on, and we must continue to take care of our responsibilities to the Lord, our families, and our jobs. Depression is it's a bad sickness, you know. Some people, get it worse than others, but to come out of a deep depression is pretty tough from what life has shown me, 2 Samuel chapter 19, verses 8, 9, 14, and 15, 33, 34, and 37. Then the king arose and sat in the gate, and they told unto all the people, saying, Behold, the king doth sit in the gate. And all the people came before the king, for Israel had fled every man to his tent. And all the people were at strife throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, The king saved us out of the hand of our enemies, and he delivered us out of the hand of the Philistines, and now he has fled out of the land for Absalom. And he bowed the heart of all men of Judah, even as the heart of one man, so that they sent this word unto the king, Return thou and all thy servants, come home. So the king returned and came to Jordan, and Judah came to Gilgal to go to meet the king, to conduct the king over Jordan. And the king said unto Barzillai, Come thou over with me, and I will feed thee with me in Jerusalem. And Barzillai said unto the king, How long have I to live? He was an old man, that I should go up with the king unto Jerusalem. Let thy servant, I pray thee, turn back again, that I may die in my own city, and be buried by the grave of my father and of my mother. But behold, thy servant Chimham, let him go over with my lord the king, and do to him what shall seem good unto thee. At the urging of Joab, David got up from his mourning and went to the city gate. Remember that David was in the city of Mahanaim on the east side of the Jordan River. He had fled. Only his soldiers and those who fled with David were there. The Bible does not record what David said, but just his presence at the city gate, the place of city governance, was enough to assure them that David was back on his throne and ready to rule. There remained great confusion in Israel over who was to be king in Israel. Some were doubting David's ability. He had defeated the Philistines, but fled from his son Absalom. Some were wishing for Absalom, who was dead. Others were ready for David to return to the throne. In the midst of this confusion, David acted to restore unity in Israel. He sent Zadok and Abiathar, the priest, to the elders of Judah to remind them that he was also a Judean. Remember, David ruled in Judah first before he was accepted by all of Israel as king. Of all tribes, they should have been the first to welcome David back. He also made a compromise with them by appointing Amasa, who had led Absalom's army, to lead the entire army of Israel. Was this a wise move? Because I believe Joab was leading it. Now he's going to take the leadership, the generalship away from him and give it to the guy that led Absalom's army, I mean, David's efforts bowed the heart of all men of Judah, and unity was being restored in Israel. Judah and all the tribes of Israel were ready for David to return to Jerusalem to be king again. So David began his journey back to Jerusalem. In verses 16 through 43, we read of how David made peace with his enemies and rewarded his loyal supporters. The first person David encountered was Shimei, who had previously cursed the king and threw rocks at him. But David was acquainted with forgiveness, having been forgiven by the Lord, and was quick to forgive his enemies. I think we can pick up a valuable lesson from David here. You don't hold grudges. Forgive our enemies. I know it's hard. But it's not us that's going to, it's the Lord that's going to help us. David was then reunited with Mephibosheth, Jonathan's crippled son. There was some confusion about Mephibosheth's loyalty to David. Earlier, Ziba, Mephibosheth's servant, had lied about Mephibosheth, saying that he wanted to become king. Unwisely, David believed the lie and gave Ziba all that he had previously given to Mephibosheth. Now he's going to take the land away from the Jonathan's crippled youngin, and give it to Ziba. I mean, that kind of sounds a little weird. Now that all was cleared up, David told Mephibosheth to divide the land with Ziba. Well, maybe that's a little better, which seems to me to be a poor decision. But Mephibosheth expressed his sincere loyalty to King David, saying, "Yea, let him take all, for as much as my lord the king is come again in peace unto his own house." Be careful about believing people's tales about betraying friends. Be sure to hear your friends first before casting judgment on them. You and somebody else's friends are friends for a reason. Don't let somebody come up to you and tell you a tall tale. A lot of people take joy in that, That should nobody take joy in that. You won't have it about. If you have a handful of good friends in your lifetime, you've had a lot more than a lot of people. So talk to your friend first. Don't just cast judgment on hearsay and this. David was also met by Barzillai, who had previously cared for David during his exile. David welcomed Barzillai to join him in Jerusalem, promising to care for him for the rest of his life. However, Barzillai declined, wishing to remain in his own city, and instead asked if Chimham, it was probably his son, could take his place. David agreed and seemingly gave him part of his personal estate in Bethlehem. David was careful to repay favor with favor plus more. So should we seek to do good to others, even those who do us wrong? David faced difficult and serious decisions in returning to the throne of Israel. He chose to replace Joab, the leader of his army, with Amasa as his chief commander. He took from Mephibosheth, his loyal friend, and gave to Ziba, who had deceived him. He let Shimei live when he had cursed the king. There was still division in Israel and threat of rebellion. Leaders are faced with difficult decisions. What should David have done? Did he do right, Joe?
What's your opinion?
My opinion is if David had talked to the Lord about it and the Lord led him, he made the right decision. Sometimes you have to do a little bit for your enemies to ever win them over.
Sometimes you won't run over.
And sometimes you don't.
He seemingly forgave, but he didn't forget it. He set boundaries. He knew what was going to come down the road. Yeah. He had it set up, they're going to die. They're going to pay for that. You get by from now, but that whipping is coming.
Pay me now, or you can pay me later. Important to notice is that David did not inquire of the Lord. So he didn't inquire of the Lord about it. He just did it on his own. We can turn back to the early chapters of 2 Samuel and see that David had inquired of the Lord in almost every decision he had made. Here he did not. This does not bode well for David and Israel. It is of paramount importance for us to seek the Lord in every decision we make no matter how large or small. Don't take but a few seconds. Don't take long. Big decisions, you probably need to give a little bit more thought. Small decisions, get the Lord's blessing on it before you do it. On everything the Lord blesses us with. 2 Samuel chapter 20 verses 1 and 2 and 21 and 22. And there happened to be there a man of Belial, whose name was Sheba, the son of Bichri, a Benjamite, and he blew a trumpet and said, We have no part in David, neither have we inheritance in the son of Jesse. Every man to his tents, O Israel. So every man of Israel went up from after David and followed Sheba, the son of Bichri. But the men of Judah clave unto their king from Jordan even to Jerusalem. The matter is not so, but a man of Mount Ephraim, Sheba, the son of Bichri by name, hath lifted up his hand against the king, even against David. Deliver him only, and I will depart from the city. And the woman said unto Joab, Behold, his head shall be thrown to thee over the wall. Then the woman went into all the people in her wisdom, and they cut off the head of Sheba, the son of Bichri, and cast it out to Joab. And he blew a trumpet, and they retired from the city, every man to his tent, and Joab returned to Jerusalem unto the king. Now, was that smart, Joe?
It was valid.
I mean, we sacrificed one mean one, I believe, for the city. Or should they have fought, Wayne?
No, they did the right thing.
Ending chapter 19, the tribes of Israel argued with the tribe of Judah over who had the most rights and privileges with King David. Once again, David was too silent, leaving the tribe of Judah to shout the other tribes down. As a result, a man named Sheba of the tribe of Benjamin raised a rebellion by saying, We have no part in David, neither have we inheritance in the son of Jesse, every man to his tents. They assumed by David's silence that he agreed with Judah. Fortunately, by the quick actions of Joab, whom David had replaced with Amasa, Sheba was killed and the rebellion put down. Amasa proved himself a poor military commander, having delayed the pursuit of Sheba. Likely motivated by jealousy and to reclaim his position as David's chief commander, Joab killed Amasa. We cannot approve Joab's actions, but David's decision to replace Joab with Amasa was a poor one.
Not a bad decision.
Yeah. He delayed going after He delayed going after Sheba. Joab went. Got the job done. Joab was about to storm the city of Abel in pursuit of Sheba when a wise woman approached the commander and posed a better idea. Instead of destroying an entire city in Israel, she agreed to deliver Sheba's head to Joab. The head was delivered, and Joab and his army went back to Jerusalem. Joab is an enigma. In one sense, he was a man of action when King David struggled to know how to act. And old Joab talked stern to him. Joab saved David a lot of trouble by taking matters into his own hands. However, Joab's tactics were less than admirable. Whether Joab was acting according to the will of God is unknown because there was no effort to seek God's will. This was another failure on David's part. So we should seek God's will. Little things, big things. Setting the application. There's nothing easy about decision making. I try to get my wife to tell me where we're going to eat at. We're going to eat out, you know. Guess how many times she does it? Not that many. She just don't want. She says it's because, well, I don't know if you want to really eat there. I says, wherever you say to go, I would go. It don't matter. Make a decision. Some people are like that. They just don't.
Well, sometimes I would remind, and I said, we don't make no difference. Okay, we're gonna get chicken. Well, I had chicken yesterday, but I asked you.
Oh, them tough decisions.
It's called marriage.
Yeah, they tough. Sometimes we make the right decisions. Sometimes we do not. But if we would seek the Lord's will in every decision, we would make better decisions. They may not all be right, but they'd certainly be better. We cannot see the future outcome of our decisions, and there are many unknowns to us, but God sees all, and there is nothing unknown to Him. This is why we must seek the Lord's will in the decisions we make. There'd be better ones. David too often made the mistake of inaction. Leaders cannot stand on the sidelines and let others make decisions for them. Leaders must act. Leaders must decide. As I often define leadership, it is the person who goes first. To be a strong and godly leader, we must seek the Lord's will in decisions that must be made. And once clear on what to do, we must have the courage to step forward, leading others into the will of God. You like making decisions, John Boy?
No.
Jamie, you have to make any?
Now, you can say that.
Yeah.
If I wanted to make mine, then you have to make them, you have to make them.
There's a time and place for everything. And you got to be ready on the spot. It ain't like, okay, you got a lot of time to think about it. It might not be true, but it's a story I heard years ago that on the ship, and I don't know what you call them, like the military, you got the captain, the general, sergeant, stuff like that. A big ship, and here's a mine coming at them, and they didn't have just less than a minute, and then they're saying, what to do, and one's high authority leadership, and like a corporal stood up and said, may I say something, General? I said, sure. How about we take the fire hose, the water, and shoot down there and push that mine out of the way. They did that, and so it's not necessarily. But a lot of times, people in leadership don't want to listen to somebody like a little dog. You ain't got no education. You don't know the strategy. So, the Lord deals, you got to, and like I tell people, especially young ones and stuff, I'm teaching them about, like, it's time to fight. And Ecclesiastes 3 tells us a time for war, peace, and everything else. And they'd ask me, well, when should I fight? If I stand up for myself. The Lord tells you something. You got to know when to walk away, when to speak up. And I said, look, I can't tell you when. If you stay in touch with the Lord, when that instance come up, He will reveal it to you, whether to keep your mouth closed, walk away, or you may have to stand your ground and fight. But that's the main thing, staying in touch with the Lord. I can't tell you, but the Lord will. So that's leadership.
Yeah. Quick decision.
Bible also says a poor man's wisdom is despised.
Oh, yeah. That little old fella in that military, to me, that was a good idea. It worked. Well, if it didn't work, they'd tell them what they'd have done to the guy. First thing when you went telling that story, I thought of taking a gun and shooting it, and exploding it before we hit it, maybe it wouldn't be quite as bad.
So maybe you go back to like David. Sometimes listen to the little guy. Listen to what that's out there that's doing in the battle. He's been there. He had experience.
He's leading people.
Yeah,
He knows the people.
You know things. But look here, I've been running that, and I've seen people. And I run in that with at plant for 35 years, DOT, and I've heard them. The big man, the other one say, tell the boss man something. He said, look, he said, you trying to take my job? He said, I'm the boss. He said, I said, look, you've been here for 20 years, and I've been here for 2 years. I don't claim this. If he don't listen to you, and you've been here 20, 25 years, and he's just been a boss man for 5 years. He's been here and been a boss man less than 5 at that time, but and another one, he told me the same thing. And I said, they don't need me to say anything, because he gonna look at me and say, you're older, but you ain't been here long enough. But like I told them guys, I was raised up on a farm. I got common sense. I mean, I don't have to go and do a lot of things. I know that if you don't clean that ditch out, the water ain't gonna flow. It's just common sense.
That's right.
But it takes time. After a while, they get to learn. People get to learn you and see how you work and how you talk. They'll eventually listen to you. But until then, you may well keep your mouth closed.
Every job has the easiest, best way to do it. And don't think that you always know the easiest, best way to do it. A lot of people have done things day in and day out. They know a little better than what the boss man would know. He ain't out there battling the maintenance of stuff over. But them men out there, they're the ones out there doing the work.
Well, I tell you nothing. I'm more. The fellow I fished with, he worked with a light company for years, and so they got a new trainee, and he was on the ground with that guy on the light pole. He was doing it, and the guy on the ground learning. He asked the fellow about doing such. He stopped. He said, "I've been doing this here for so years, and I'm training you. You don't tell me what to do." He said he didn't say anything. I could. When he went around more, he did what that guy said. He said, "Man, it's so much easier."
Yeah.
But he worked on admit it to him, and
that was a good grunt. Man on the ground's a grunt. He's doing his job, man. He's trying to make it easier on you. I mean, hey, try it. It might be easy.
Well, that's like when I ran the machine at work. When the trainee come, I said, I'm going to teach you how to do it by the book. Then I'll teach you how to do it easily.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So we had these inspectors come once a year. I said, if they come and ask you, you'll know how to do it. But don't tell them how to do it over here.
Do it this
They
way.
weren't cheating, it just made it
The
easy.
easiest, best way. I don't want you to get hurt. I'm not telling you to do something. The easiest, best, you have to put safety in everything you do. But safety's a two-edged sword, You can certainly go too far to where you can't get anything done.
Like buy a hot cup of coffee at McDonald's
Yeah,
and get burnt by it
yeah.
because you don't have no common sense in those items.
Me and you'd be mad if they give us a cold cup of coffee,
well, if you remember seeing the movie Sergeant York, he didn't
Oh,
want to.
yeah. I know.
But he said, "Why do you do that?" He said, "Well, I killed these to save lives, and it's just like dropping an atomic bomb. A bomb will go and apologize. Look here, you got to make a decision. This war going to go on and on and on, and we can just stop it. So what? You killing people, but how you going to justify it?" I said he did the right thing.
Sergeant York captured the whole German brigade by himself. He was from Tennessee, by the way. I love the Sergeant York movie now. Based on a true story, though.
Can't believe there's a face.
but they added a little to it.
I'm sure they added something to it.
He wasn't a sergeant. He was, or I think he was a corporal. They said it would sound better if you put him as a sergeant.
Y'all watched it, haven't y'all? If you haven't, you need to watch it. It's an old movie. He didn't want to kill anybody in war, you know. But his old commander gave him the Bible and said,
Right.
"You go read this." And old Sergeant York went and read it because he was going to get out of the military. Because he was asking for that exemption, you know. But he actually saw it the way you had to do it at times, you know. Not that we
When you
wanted
break
to.
it down, same thing here at the church. We made decisions that it wasn't good in people's eyes. But you got to make a decision if you're on the deacon board or whatever. I don't know what then, but that's why you stay prayed up.
Joe, you want to dismiss us today?
Lord Jesus, if we learn anything from this lesson, may it be that a sin is not dealt with becomes an eating cancer. All these lives with millions of lost because David didn't deal with this sin. Lord, may we learn from history the doom truth. And we all be more obedient to you, Lord, just like us. In Christ's name.
Amen. Oh, you think
You hear that? EV car caught on fire. It's been about a month ago.
no.
It was on an interstate overhead pass. It burnt the cement. They had to close the
Oh, the
interstate.
gasoline truck.
No, this was an EV car.
Oh,
And they even locked the guy up. They said it took a little over 32,000 gallons to put the fire out. And they asked the guy how many gallons it took to put gasoline in the car fire. He said 500. And see, said, we don't know how to put these fires out. And you throw water on
oh
it's
man.
32,000 for one fire.
I've heard a lot of EV car stories. I heard one this weekend. The guy, he